My people, what is going on? This is Kari. Welcome to Temple of Geek Podcast. I am going to be your host today as we share our thoughts on the movie Xeno. If you haven't watched the movie, please save this episode for later because we are going to be talking spoilers. I am here with my amazing fellow colleague and friend, Suhaila. What's
Hello,
going on,
hello.
girl? How are
Hi.
you?
Good, good. I'm excited to talk about this movie.
I know. Me too, me too, me too. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about, and I'm excited. We haven't done this in a while. We haven't, been able to get together and do anything. So this is really exciting. Yeah, let's get into the movie. I didn't read anything on the premise except for it's a girl and an alien, but I didn't really read too much, so I went in completely blind, and I was pleasantly surprised. But what did you think overall of the movie?
Same. I went in completely blind. I just knew sci-fi, aliens, stuff was going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I was also like really pleasantly surprised. Again, like didn't really know what was going to happen with the plot. There's a lot of like nostalgia in it. We can get into that later, but there's a lot of like nostalgia and familiarity as well as like a lot of like really cool new stuff. And I really enjoyed it overall.
Yeah. So just real quick, quick synopsis about what the movie's about. It's about a teenage girl and a terrifying alien form, and they form a powerful bond after a chance encounter in the desert, sending them on an adventure that questions the nature of good and evil. As government agents close in, the girl discovers the alien is not the extraterrestrial she expected. Compelled to protect her new friend, she uncovers a secret that could change the fate of both their worlds. So I love that this story was very self-contained, right? It wasn't like a super galactic, chase around the world, copying into different places all the time. It was very self-contained. It was in just one place, and the story focused on the girl and the alien. That was the main focus. It wasn't even too much about what's going on in space and what they were doing here, but it was just that relationship that she had with the alien. And I thought that was really interesting. And I love that they concentrate on that, because there's a lot of things that could be said about what their story was in the movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that as well. Like very like the story was like very like focused in terms of what it was trying to tell and it was that relationship, but there was still like hints at like the world being bigger, right? Like when they hint at the fact that this isn't the first time, that there's an alien like this that has come to Earth, but it's not looking at all of that. It's sort of touching on it a little bit, but it's showing that in relation to these two characters, like the alien and the girl in that relationship between them. And I really love that. I love that it was like very like focused. I love that it was, it really focused on that relationship and like the exploration of that she goes through with this alien. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. And also, like, I love that they kept the alien a mystery for a good chunk of the movie and didn't quite show it to us for a while because it again it kind of it builds up that suspense, but again it also like focuses on like, you know, it's not focused on, the alien world and the ship and the what, like all of those sort of things that are also like really cool, but in this case it's really about like that relationship, like the connection, the humanity of it all. And I really enjoyed that.
No, no, I really love that. 'Cause, Renee, which is the main protagonist, the girl, we see her that she's going through, a very hard time. She's dealing with a loss of her father. She's having to deal with her mother dealing with that loss. Her mother, it's having a very hard time trying, I guess, accepting that loss as well. So she has to kind of try to navigate through all of that pain by herself because her mother can't give her any kind of support right now because the mother is going through her own thing. And then she has to deal with the boyfriend of the mother, which is completely abusive, and the mother just has it there because she needs some, like, she wants to feel some type of support. So we see her kind of broken down, and then we see the alien also broken down because he got caught and he's by himself and he's hurt. So of course, hurt people, they find each other and they're able to bond over their pain that they're going through, which is interesting that that happens between, because normally that's happened between human beings. She's able to do that with the alien.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you're talking about like that relationship and how there's like the physical manifestation of pain through the alien and then the emotional manifestation of pain through Renee and her mom and all of the the trauma that they've been going through. And I love that they kind of mirror each other in that way, and how like they're leaning on each other to kind of get through the pain, whether they realize it or not. And I think that that's kind of like a really interesting relationship or a really interesting thing within that relationship. And I think it helps both of them at the detriment of, at their detriment in the end, because, external forces and factors. But I think that had they been allowed to just like continue that relationship, I think they would have both healed each other in really important ways.
One of the main focuses was pain and going through pain, because we see that with Renee, we see that with her mom Linda, we see that with the alien itself. We see that with even with the abusive boyfriend when he spoke about how his father treated him, the abuse that he received. So now he's transferring that abuse onto her. We see that with the agent, Jonathan, because it seems that he lost probably his son, I think, because it's implied, right? I think it might have been his son because he plays with that little toy.
It's, I think, very heavily implied.
People react differently to their pain, to expressing their pain, because Jonathan is kind of lashing out about his pain, about losing his son. Even his Renee's friend Gil, having to deal with his father and his immigration situation. He's also going through and trying to navigate that as well.
Yeah. It's interesting that you talk about like the different ways that people are dealing with pain, because you mentioned the agent Jonathan Keyes and how he's like lashing out and he's using it to like blind him essentially to these aliens, and like very focused on revenge. The mom is essentially in freeze mode, which is very understandable. Like she can't move on. She's falling into these patterns that are not very good for her or her daughter. The boyfriend is just perpetuating the same thing over and over again, like it's just generational trauma being passed down. Renee seems to be like the only one who's actually trying to move forward through that pain, but she's also sort of using the alien as like a project, sort of to channel some of that, into maybe a distraction, maybe like as something to heal, so that she feels a bit more healed. But yeah, it's really interesting that they do show like the different types of trauma, the different types of pain, and the different ways that they're all dealing with it.
Hmm. Yeah, no, and then we get to see that at the end, when they sadly they kill the alien. It's supposedly, he's dead. But then that now Renee is gonna have to deal with another death of somebody that she bonded, like it was an actual literal bond with her, you know? Same type of bond that she probably had with her father. Now she's going through the same thing all over again. But hopefully, there's some I would hope I'm hope well, it seems, I don't know if that ending is kind of like it's implied that maybe she this time around she kind of knows how to deal with it now, instead of just lashing out like she did in the beginning, that she was just like, over everything, and she was very sarcastic and very, condescending and stuff like that. But her just like I like that visual of her just sitting in the swing and kind of being a little bit more like it looked like she was a little bit more at ease. I guess also helps that her mom finally kind of like woke up from all of that, and now she's gonna have her mom support there, which she didn't have when her father died,
Hmm.
you know.
I think that's how I was also seeing it as well. Is like the first trauma that she experiences with her dad dying, she kind of could not deal with it. She couldn't go through that process of grief because her mom was going through it really, really. It was really difficult for her mom, and she was going through it, and Renee was supporting her mom through it. So she didn't actually go through the process of grief herself and get to actually experience it and be supported through that. And I think this time, like you were saying, like her mom is has snapped out of that freeze that she was in, and is in a place where she can help Renee, and Renee's being allowed to sort of grieve and feel what she needs to feel, and have support to be able to do that. And she's not just trying to like keep herself alive and keep her mom alive and you know be the adult essentially, and have to put that sort of grief and pain and all of that aside, and sadness and everything that comes with a loss. Yeah, and it's interesting that you also bring up the bond, because even though like technically Renee and the alien haven't been together for like a very long amount of time. It's like a few days, a week max. But that there's also that like actual bond that the two of them had where they're feeling each other. She's more the alien feeling Renee, it seemed like. But I think Renee also still had that sort of attachment, even if, you know, the attachment over those few days without that bond would still be enough for her to feel the grief. But then you add in that sort of connection. Um, and I think because of that connection, it also like influenced the alien. Because the other thing too that we see is the alien being characterized as like this really evil monster by Jonathan. Is his name Jonathan? Yes, by Jonathan, the agent, like really, you know, being afraid of it and seeing the destruction of it. But we don't see that in this particular alien, and I think it speaks to like Renee as a person and how like that bond is probably like it's definitely influencing the alien and influencing how the alien is behaving, and I think that's really like crucial. And it's something that again, because Jonathan's so hyper focused on his goal, and you know he's just being, you know, blinded by his preconceived ideas of the alien, which I'm sure are valid, that he's not willing to see any other side of the aliens or any other option for what the aliens are here to do on Earth.
Hmm. I just wanted to go back real quick to something you said about how Renee kind of like probably took on the alien to kind of, oh, let me help them so she could like distract herself and stuff like that. I think like an interesting other way that we could see it as well is that the alien is her grief personified. Basically, metaphorically, she's helping herself by helping him. She's helping healing him, but it's her healing herself from her grief. She's taking so much care, trying to heal this alien, trying to like find the good in him, trying to, getting that bond together. And that's basically, you could see that you can kind of say that it's herself trying to form that bond with herself again, where she can find herself again, type of thing. So, it's very interesting that you could see it in so many different ways and stuff like that. But going into talking about Jonathan and about how far he's taking things, now we can kind of get into the topic of government overstepping, which is something else that we could talk about, especially with everything that's going on right now, especially here in the United States, with so much government overreach and just whatever means necessary, even if it means infringing and doing things that are illegal, that are like completely horrendous. And one of the big things is how he's using this poor little kid, Gil, and the situation with his father against him, because the father doesn't have papers. We at least, we're getting the topic of immigration, which is something very big right now as well, and here in the United States, and how he's using that to manipulate this little kid, because of course he's going to be scared for his father. I love that they kind of touched into that as well. Again, very prevalent with everything that's going on right now.
Yeah. And I think also, like, yes, we do see like Gil and his family and the immigration issues specifically, like, outright there. But I think the topic of the alien as well can also just be a metaphor for immigration in general, right? Like, this sense of other, you know, this new, whatever, different, you know, group of people moving into a country, and then this sort of like resistance to them and seeing them in one specific light and demonizing them, even even if they've been around for a while, even if they don't actually mean harm, and the purposeful misunderstanding of them and treating them like enemies that need to be, you know, eradicated eradicated or stopped or, you know, eliminated, all of that sort of stuff is very much straight up metaphor for immigration. Government oversight as well, like just seeing like everything that is happening today with ICE and all of that, and the way that Gil is being manipulated. And again, the family, you already mentioned, that is very insidious. One, because it's a child, and two, because they're blackmailing him and his family. And then you also get to see how far Jonathan takes it with not even hesitating to break a child's bones to try to like get to this alien, right? Like he knows pain will make the alien come back for Renee, and he's just like, yep, breaking fingers. Like, it's just like, dude, like, it's so wild that, you know, he lost a child and now he's doing this to another child. And instead of trying to like appeal to her, you know, to send or even like listen to her. Like he's just so gung-ho, and he's abusing his power, and that's unfortunately not something that is uncommon. Government abuse is not uncommon, and it happens. I mean, again, we're seeing it today with ICE, and it's not just today, it's been happening forever. But we get to see like very obvious, clear examples of that happening in this movie. And I mean, I didn't want to see Jonathan as the bad guy, especially as, Omari Hardwick playing him. And I mean, yes, they are technically still government employees, and like they do have a lot of power and overreach. And he was saying like that he's essentially bending the rules, but it's also not just him. Like the guy who, yes, he tries to stop him, but then he's still silent in the face, like watching him do this. So it's like it's a systemic issue. And even if like one person starts going off, off book, or going and doing all these terrible things, there's still an entire system propping them up and supporting them. Like he would not be at this level of power, had there not been all of these people propping him up. And it is unfortunately a parallel to real world governments and politics and what we see happening day to day. And I did enjoy like seeing the realism there, even though it was like a small part of the movie, it wasn't the focus. But in those small moments, they do show enough of that. And again, he's like, he gets hurt, but they escape, and he's still gung ho. And even though he has orders to bring in this alien alive, he's just completely gone off the rails, and he was like ready to. I mean, he kills it, right? He does damage it enough that we think it has died until we get to the post credit scene. But yeah,
Yeah. No, no, no. I like that you said that it's showing how it's just a systematic thing, because even towards the end, like we get no type of redemption from him, no type of, oh, maybe like when he's almost there at the end, when he's about to die, nothing, because normally that's what we get in the movies towards the end, like, oh, maybe he sees the light and everything. But again, in real life it doesn't happen that way, and I like that because kind of mirrors that. Like, no, the people will do bad things, especially, the government will do bad things, and we can't wait for a Lily Rose type of ending with these type of situations in real life. So it kind of mirror them mirroring that in the movie. I thought that was really cool that they did that. Hmm.
and I love that they also humanized him as well, like with the car, with the fact that he had a kid that very heavily implied was killed by an alien, and that's why he's dead set on this. Um, I like that they did like humanize him still, but he was still an awful person throughout. Like maybe not the first scene that we see him, but the very first scene with Renee when he's basically threatening her like right off the bat, right? And then just until his end at the end of the movie. Yeah, I like that they did show that. Like even if you do, are doing things for real reasons, it doesn't mean that what you're doing is right.
Yes, absolutely. That right there. That, of course, as when we first see him and we see him with the little car, and we kind of start getting more into what might be motivating him with why he's acting that way. Of course you're going to sympathize, because anybody would go absolutely crazy if they were to lose a child, especially if it's something that is out of his control. And I think that's one of the things that probably was like very much driving him forward and bothering him, was the fact that he couldn't control it. Something that he's trying to, but it's hard to, because it's an otherworldly thing. Like and he's trying so hard, and that's why he that motivates him to even lose himself more, and doing things that he's not supposed to be doing, and doing those bad things. Um, because even though we might sympathize him with him, we might sympathize with him. He drives us to stop feeling for him with his actions. You know.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that you bring up control as well, because even though, like, it seems like they have some idea of what these aliens are, or at least a preconceived idea, a notion of what these aliens are. But the fact that they still want this alien alive, to capture it alive, and that they're still studying it shows that they actually don't really understand them fully, right? Like, there's an idea that came to mind, or an idea that they have come up with, this theory, it seems like. And he's just latched onto it because it confirms what he experienced with the aliens, right? And so he's just going with that, and that's the, what he's telling Renee. But it seems like they still don't fully understand these aliens. They don't really know why. Like, they have an idea of maybe why they're coming, but it's not completely clear. And this alien in particular is, not following, at least from what we've seen. They haven't really seen it, but from what we've seen, is not following what they've set out, from what Jonathan is saying, like, these aliens are doing, and this is why they're there. So it's like, it's really interesting that, like, they don't actually, even though they're, as like a government agency, they're kind of exuding this sense of like control and authority. They don't actually really know what's going on, and they're still trying to figure it out. And I don't think that Jonathan likes gray areas, it seems like.
No, it's very, and just again with the government, you know, trying to control everything. I think Jonathan was so far off with what the government wanted, because since this is the first time that they've had an alien bond this strongly with somebody, from what it's implied, from what they've said, right? So I know that they wanted to take the alien alive so they could study this is something that they know. And then Jonathan just didn't care about that at all. Like, he just completely went off the script. And just again comes to, shows you how much, when you're in pain, when you're in grief, it just completely blinds you to any type of rational thought. And what can happen when you don't deal with those emotions, when you don't really treat it, and really try to work past it, so that was really, really, that was really cool, all of those little comparisons there when it comes to control and stuff. And but then now, talking actually about the connection and the bond that Renee, got with the alien. What did you think about that? Like,
Yeah. So that connection, I think, because you were saying, this is the strongest that they've seen. And I think it was the strongest that they've seen because of Renee. Like, we see her in the very beginning with her pets, and they're all pets that like kids wouldn't normally have, or they're seen as like dangerous, like the snakes. And I forget what else she has, maybe a scorpion, I forget. But all these reptiles that are seen as like, gross or dangerous or whatever, but she is like very loving to them. And as soon as like I saw that, and then I saw the alien, oh, I was like, oh, the alien's going to be something that's kind of like reptilian probably. And she's going to bond to it, or she's not going to be afraid of it. And I think that's the key, is she wasn't afraid of it. She was trying to save it and nurture it. And that's what like caused the alien to want to bond with her, and that's what created that strong of a bond. And she continued to nurture that bond through like the singing. That was actually one of like my favorite things to see, is like when she's singing and like the scales on the back of the alien start vibrating. Ah, it was so good. It was so good. But that, I think, uh that's what made the connection strong, and also that's what made the alien not seem as dangerous, or not fit the description that Jonathan and the other agents are putting out there about this alien being super dangerous. And like, let's like, the alien is a predator, like that's not going away, right? Like, we hear what happens with the pigs when it goes to feed, right? It is a predator, right? It is still very powerful, and it's very capable of death and destruction, but it's listening to Renee, and it's not just doing that unprovoked. Like, even the guy in the basement hits the alien first out of fear, and that seems to be like why the aliens are reacting the way that they are in the previous times that they've come to Earth, is because it's always, getting that reaction of fear. And that was actually something that first came to mind when I was watching it, and we see the first person, obviously out in the desert alone, hears something, sees this like bright light thing, goes to explore, and has a weapon. And I'm like, well, of course, right? But that was like, that's how most people are responding to these aliens, with fear, with violence. And then there's Renee, that is responding to them with curiosity, with like, this awe, openness, and is nurturing that, is trying to protect the alien, is trying to nurse it back to health, is trying to feed it, is singing to it. Like, all of these things a different is making the alien different than what, the government has dealt with before. And quick spoilers to some some shows and movies that have come out recently or earlier this year that I will be mentioning. But this idea of like these sort of aliens responding to the humans and how the humans are interacting with them, we've seen in like Mickey 17 and very recently in Alien Earth. So Mickey 17, the are not like, they immediately think that they're like this vicious, creature that is, violent and awful and is just gonna eat them, and it's not, right? And it takes Mickey 17 to like interact with them, to actually see them for who they are, and just having like the patience to try to understand them and try to like see what they're about and try to like see things from their perspective. And Alien Earth also does something very similar, where the xenomorph, again spoilers, the baby xenomorph that gets hatched in the lab, Wendy, or Marcy, is speaking with it, is nurturing it, is connecting with it, and it's behaving very differently than we would normally see xenomorphs. It is still killing, but it is doing it to protect and save Wendy, and is listening to her. It's not just this rage monster predator that we see in previous alien movies. And I think that that's such a cool concept to have, and such a cool way that such a cool thing in sci-fi that we're seeing more recently, is like this sort of humanization of these creatures, these aliens, these monsters that we're seeing. And it's not just, portraying them as just like the enemy, essentially.
The creatures are changing because of how they're being treated by these certain individuals, and but I think also at the same time the humans are also changing in a certain way. They're helping each other kind of turn into something, I don't know, better, but there's that change in between the both. For like example, with Renee, again, like again, she starts becoming a little bit more confident. She starts she's not as mad about, towards the world anymore, and she's more again, it feels like she's working through that grief, and not just because, not just still a cynical, girl that we saw at the beginning of the movie and stuff, right? And then you brought up Alien Earth, when again, spoilers, sorry. Um, you know, the xenomorph, when it was a baby, it grew up listening to Wendy, but then Wendy kind of also, when she realized that she could learn and talk to the xenomorph, her confidence also grew. Now she kind of stood up for herself. Before she was just like following orders and, no, this is where I'm supposed to be at. She was curious and stuff, but it didn't really kind of come out until, okay, I'm able to do this, And with the same thing with Mickey 17, like when he learned that he is able to like communicate and that he has this type of power. Finally he stands up for himself and is not like some weakling clone anymore. Like, no, I'm not gonna let them treat me this way. I have a purpose. I am a being, and look at the type of power that I'm able to have. Being able to get this type of relationship with this creature that nobody else was able to. So I think I love that correlation of them kind of having that type of relationship where they're both influencing each other.
Yeah. And I love that you were talking about that's sort of where they're getting their confidence and their power, is in that connection, as opposed to in the act of destroying the, monster, alien, creature, whatever. Because that's sort of something that we've also seen previously in other sci-fi stories, is like the um, gaining power over or destroying these aliens that are coming to sort of destroy us is sort of where humanity gains its power. But what we're seeing in these new stories, is a difference where the understanding of the aliens and sort of working together and having that connection is actually giving, the confidence and the power. And I think that's really cool. I think that's like, love the, I mean, I sci-fi I love in general, but I'm loving the sort of trend of connecting with and, getting that sort of like power and confidence through the connection with these creatures and understanding them at a deeper level, but still also, being humbled, and still also recognizing that they are still, beings that have their own, like sense of power, that can be destructive in its own right, and can also, be detrimental, and can still be harmful in its own right. But that not being a reason to just completely want to destroy them right out of the gate, and not have that sort of like fear be the driving force for that relationship with these creatures.
I like that it's kind of like a little bit nostalgic as well, taking us back to the stories from the past. Like we have ET, same thing happened. Little boy, shy, you know, of his house, and he finds this alien. They form this bond, and now at the end, he's like so courageous, right? He's trying to save his alien friend. Again, the bond of when ET got sick, he also got sick, type of thing. We also see it in, like, we can even say like the Goonies, when the boys uh first met Sloth. It was their Sloth was a monster to them, and then towards the end they had this bond where these kids end up, because of the adventure that they went through, they gained this new sense of courage and empathy towards somebody that was different than them. And then Sloth also changed, uh, also had that change, right? They help each other change. Sloth became, somebody that was uh not this monster that they feared. And he was able to, not be seen the way his family always treated him, right? Like the monster that they said that he was. And I think you, off camera, you mentioned Free Willy as well.
I did. Yes, that was also one that came up, especially when they were trying to save the xenomorph, essentially trying to save them towards the end. But even before that, when they were trying to find an escape, trying to find a home for the alien far away from everything, and they, were trying to get this truck to put it in and and take it far away. Like, to me, I was like, oh my god, it's like Free Willy. Getting the orca into the truck and trying to get it out into the ocean where it belongs, out into, like, deep waters and vast open space that it can go and live, away from, like, the danger of humans trying to hunt it down and destroy it. And the other one, I mean, obviously, like, the very clear, I think, aesthetically at least, parallel is also Alien, with the actual, like, design of the alien. There is a lot of similarity with the xenomorph. Like, it has, like, the neon blood. It has like the dark black slick body. It doesn't quite look machine like. There is difference there, but I like. No. Okay. And the movie itself is called Xeno, which, I mean, they don't ever say the word xenomorph, but still, like, there is still some similarities there. But it's nostalgia and familiarity that is not, that is still, like, they have their own unique spin on it, which I really love. Like, the design of the alien here in Xeno is really cool. Like, I loved, like, the teeth being see through, very different than, obviously, like, the xenomorph teeth being human like. It also, like, feels very much like a puppy. Like, again, like the back flat, scales that we were seeing, that, like, that moves. It has a bit more of a reptilian sort of look. But yeah, like, I loved, like, that you could, as a fan of sci-fi, have these sort of familiar stories and familiar, like, aesthetic, but it's its own thing. To, their own take on all of this. And I love that there was both sides there as well.
No, no, no. The visuals, like, we can get into the visuals now. The whole, like, just how the movie looked, it was so, like, cool. I love the scenery. We're out in the desert. We get to see the open space. It's so beautiful. At nighttime we see the night sky with the stars and everything. Everything was like very in your face type of visuals, because obviously in your desert is a lot of open space that you can see. The one thing about the creature, the Jim Henson company created the creature.
Oh,
So, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a Jim Henson
I gotta
puppet.
look into that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I thought that was like a really cool thing that
Cool.
and then it could show, because it looks so good.
Hmm.
It looked so good. It didn't look like, I didn't feel the CGI part of it.
I honestly thought it was like a fully functional. I'm sure there was a bit of CGI in there, but I'm pretty sure they also built the puppet. It looked very much real, and it looked like it was real, and there was moving pieces to it. Like, it was a functional puppet that they were using, or a suit that somebody was in. One or the other, or a combination of both. With the close-ups, or and then the faraway shots of it moving. Um, but yeah, like, you were mentioning the cinematography, so beautiful. Like, a lot of it happens at night, and they do a really good job of picking locations that are interesting just to have as a background, but also still lighting it properly so you can actually see what's going on, unless they don't want you to see what's going on. Like in the very, very beginning, where you don't actually, we don't get to see the alien for a little bit. We get to see kind of like glimpses of it, or we get to hear, sounds of it. And again, I really love that, the suspense of like being like, okay, what does this alien actually look like? But yeah, they do a really good job with the cinematography. The one scene that also like stood out to me was the scene when they actually connect. Like seeing that again at night, the two of them, her floating up, the alien standing there. It was really cool.
It was so cool. I love that. I loved it. And I think, okay, just real quick, we can actually see what was going on at night. Oh my God. Because we have so many issues with so many shows and movies doing that. I was like, oh my God, we can actually see, like, unless it was something like you said that we shouldn't be able because it's supposed to be
Yeah.
kind of like, mystery.
Yes.
But it was so good. And I think though there was very few times when they showed it doing something as a whole. Like we always see the when it would run, we just see the feet running, like the legs running, right?
Hmm. Like
So
we
they
saw a couple shots of it, like full body kind of,
Mhm.
as it was
Towards the
moving
end.
a little bit. Yeah. But a lot of it was very focused again to like for a specific purpose, to add suspense, to like, add mystery, to add like the sort of more horror aspect vibes, thriller vibes to it. But there was always like a reason for it.
I think that worked very much to the advantage in that since they were able to create that puppet just for those specific shots, then again the movie feels more real. It doesn't feel just like a CGI or something that was made in a computer. So that was really smart. I think the way they did that with it.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, this isn't, even though this movie is also focused on, kids, this isn't just a movie for kids either. Like, the way that they, like, there is a little bit of like the thriller sort of aspect to it, but it's not super scary, but it's also not unscary. Like, it feels like it's a really good sort of medium space where younger, younger audience can watch it. There could be a little bit of scary parts, but overall I feel like they did it in a really good way, where they're not like showing the gore, they're not showing like the things that are happening that would potentially be scary. You're kind of hearing some of it, or it's like implied, or it's sort of out in the distance, or purposefully obscured by the dark or obscured by things. But at the same time, like, as an adult watching this, like, it was very, like, I found it very intriguing, and I found it very very, I don't want to use the word mature, but like it wasn't something that I was watching and I was like, oh, like I should have watched this with a kid and had them be the main ones enjoying it. Like I really thoroughly enjoyed it, enjoyed watching it. They do a good job of like balancing the themes and balancing all the different aspects of it and having it be interesting for a wide audience.
No, no, no. That it definitely I love that they were able to kind of bring that balance, like you said. Excuse me. Um, because yeah, even though like let's say uh I don't know what the rating is. Do we have a rating? I mean, it probably would be like for like preteens, like 12 years old or
I can
something.
definitely check at least on IMDb what they're, oh,
Oh,
PG
PG 13.
13.
Yeah,
Yeah,
PG
yeah,
13. Yeah,
that's
you know,
definitely makes
like
sense to me.
and maybe some they might a teenager that a preteen or a 13, 14 year old might not be able to get all of the messages, all of the nuances in the movie. It's still entertaining enough for them to be entertained, but then again, like you said, it's still mature enough for the adults to also enjoy it and kind of they really think about the deeper meanings that the movie have. It's both entertaining and very educational. Really what I want to say at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, we've already discussed that on the podcast, but yeah, there's depth to what's happening, and there's also like levity, and there's also like the I want to say a bit of childhood like innocence and sort of that like joy of discovering something new, and kind of like exactly with like ET, the sort of secrecy and joy and kids finding finding this alien and trying to like figure out what's going on, and keeping the adults away. It's a little bit more, there's a little bit more stakes in there, I think, because of the government gets involved so quickly as well. um but yeah, like I loved all the different like aspects of it, and like you were saying, balancing all those different aspects as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now I really love what you said about that. It's not just another movie where the humanity and people get, empowered by defeating the aliens, like kind of what we get with like Independence Day, going back a while back and stuff like that.
Alien Predator. Yeah, which I love, by the way.
Yeah, it's always a metaphor, like like we get to see the whole comparison metaphor type of messaging, like when we see like with Superman being an alien, and people like lose their legs, kind of like just focus on, oh, he's a threat and we need to destroy it, and that's it, which is kind of Jonathan in this movie.
That is a very great comparison. Very great comparison. Yeah. And also like Lex also goes like to crazy extremes. Spoilers for Superman, cloning him in order to try to defeat him, trying to take over a country. Like trying to take over a piece of land where there's people living there, and trying to get rid of the people there so he can build his own country there. Very familiar to something that's going on out in the real world as well. But yeah, like that idea of it, the alien is the threat, even though the alien hasn't actually. Well, I mean, I guess previous aliens have done bad things in this world of Xeno, but this particular alien hasn't necessarily done anything bad unprovoked. Let's say hasn't done anything unprovoked. Has just been sort of defending itself. Has not dealt the first blow from what we saw in the movie, and was just sort of defending itself in the beginning, and then defending itself and Renee, and then defending Renee at the end.
The messaging behind it was, it was a lot. I was like, again, I was like pleasantly surprised with that, so that was really cool. But do you have any final thoughts right now with the movie? Any closing remarks?
Man, I'm like, I'm of two minds about a potential sequel. I think this movie on its own does such a good job of building a really great story and having it end in a way that is satisfactory, but there's still like potential there for continuing the story. And I don't want to say sequel for sequel's sake. I think there is still more story to be told, but I don't think that necessarily it has to. But I'm also selfish, and when I enjoy a story, I want more. So if they do a sequel, I will definitely be watching. But I think doing a sequel, um, I think there would have to be like a good story there with the deeper sort of messaging, just like this one, to continue the story. I think if you lose sort of the commentary, like the social and political commentary that this first movie had, and just kind of continuing a story about aliens, I think that would lose kind of the like structure of this story, and sort of lose a bit of that sort of really interesting part of it, and maybe a little bit of the magic that this first movie had. So if they do continue, yes, more aliens, yes, more sci-fi, more of Renee and Gil, and all of those great characters, but also like continue on with having the deeper meanings and having the messaging there that is meaningful.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way with the sequel. I think if they don't come out with any other movie, just like you said, I think I would be happy with it, because again, I think the biggest premise here was that that message, that story of Renee and the alien. It wasn't just an entertainment movie, like again, like we get with other movies, like again, and sci-fi movies, like with Independence Day, stuff like that, right? uh but if they do a sequel, I do hope that it's not just gonna be the entertaining part of now telling us about the aliens and what they're gonna come do, and just humanity fighting against them. But again, why explaining, yes, explain why they're here, but then why are they connecting with human beings? What is that connection about? you know there has to be some type of explanation on why this connection is happening, and I think that would be an interesting thing to explore in a sequel.
Yeah. Because it seems deliberate, because it's not just like, oh, first human I meet, I connect with. It took a while for the alien to decide to connect with Renee, but we don't really know why that happened. So yeah, that is one of the
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It did. It did. Yeah. And also the interesting part that was when he landed in Earth, it didn't just flat out go try to like murder everybody and go on a killing spree, you know? It didn't. So yeah, what was the purpose and why are they just like here doing what with the humans? What is it that they're trying to, do here in that sense? So
Yeah.
hopefully we get a sequel, it will be about that.
Yes.
But anyway, so this is going to wrap up this episode of the Temple of Geek podcast. Sue, thank you so much for being here. It was an amazing conversation. I missed it so much. And
Me too. Me too.
yes, if you have any thoughts or questions or comments, feel free to hit us up. We are on YouTube, we are on TikTok, Instagram. Again, thank you again so much for joining us. And we really hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.
Bye.